Hello, welcome to Empower and Ignite Transformation Podcast with Alicia and Nicole. How are you, Alicia?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Listen, it is hot, so any
Mhm.
you know me in the heat, so I am doing awesome. I love it.
Okay, we got thunderstorms. It's cloudy, it's raining, and it's thundering. So,
Oh, okay.
mhm,
Okay.
one of those days down in Georgia.
Wow. Yeah. Well, rain is necessary, right?
Right, right. Yeah, we was
Mhm.
actually we needed the rain. It was so dry down here. We needed it. So we
Yeah.
can't really complain. When it rains, I love it down here. It feels
Okay.
better. I don't know. It just
Yeah, we definitely need it. Listen, my grass need it.
right. Correct.
Because watering it just is not enough, especially when it's in the 90s. So
Yeah. Like
definitely.
they said, water is one of them things. It heal everything, right? Just throw some
Mhm.
water, put some water on it. It'll heal
Listen, we
everything.
need that water, right? So I am like really excited, but as I always say, I'm excited for every episode, right? If you are new to our channel, please like, share, and subscribe. But I'm excited about today's topic because I think it's necessary for people to really realize why they do the things that they do, what has impacted them so much so where they behave a certain way or even think a certain way, right? So today's topic is on how your experiences shape you. They shape you into who you are. So often people may be wondering, why did I do that, right? Or why did I say that? Why do I make the choices that I make or the decisions that I've made? They reflect and they're like, well, if I hadn't have made that choice or decision, and I often say, listen, giving yourself the grace because when you made the choice that you made, likely you were in a space in a mindset of this is the best decision for me, or even if you knew it wasn't the best decision for you, because sometimes people do make decisions even though they know it's not right, right? But they
True.
want what they want, right? Where did that come from? Where did that stem from, right? So I think that this topic is going to be awesome. And I'm excited to just dive in.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very important topic because a lot of times, too, I think we forget that everyone has a story, right? And their story, their background is what shaped them. And that is how they perceive the world, their perception on things, how they act, how they carry relationships. So we talk about dating and we're talking about, building those lifelong connections. All that kind of comes back to what shapes us, right? Because we all have this story. So I think that that's a very important topic to kind of talk about and to understanding that everyone's story is different and to appreciating, people for who they are and their
Right.
individuality.
Definitely. And even when you think about, so when we are reared, right, by parents or guardians, right,
Mhm.
we are told what to do.
Right.
And so we learn behavior, right? What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. We model that behavior as we grow, right? You
Right.
see, even when you think about children and them wanting to play in the kitchen, right? Or even just like if it's a boy, he might want the hammer and want to, act like he's repairing a car or doing certain things because he saw his dad do it,
Mhm.
or a father figure. A girl may want the vacuum cleaner, and I know I'm saying gender roles, but I'm just saying a girl may want the vacuum cleaner or act as if she's washing dishes. All of the things because they're modeling what they see, likely, right? And so we know that exists. But also, it is where in your home, that's your environment. That's where you're going to be the majority of the time, especially when you're young, right? When you're the early stages, right? And so you're soaking up everything. You're a sponge. You're
Mhm.
hearing adults talk. You're hearing adults behave a certain way. you're also learning what's okay and what's not okay according to the consequences, right? So whether
Right.
you see a parent, parents may be arguing, right? And you learn, oh, this is how they were communicating with one another. Or you
Mhm.
may notice that um somebody might get into it and then nobody talks for a period of time, and then next thing you know everything is always back to normal, or everybody is just like nothing never happened, right? And
Right.
then you start to grow up and you're like, wait a minute, so when I didn't address this issue,
Mhm.
or when I was, not communicating because I just didn't see that, or that was something that I was taught that you just let it go and move on. So many different factors, right? And just the experiences that you witnessed, but also was in,
Mhm.
shaped you.
For sure. For sure. And I think you make a good point, right? Because even though we could say like the vacuum cleaner and seeing daddy with the hammer, those are gender roles, but those are experiences, right? Those are what we are, our perception. I always see my mom in the kitchen. I'm a girl, mom a girl. I belong in the kitchen. That's the perception, right? Now, if I never see my mom cook, the perception may be that women don't. Anyone can cook, maybe, but for a young girl who only see mom, maybe that's now going forward in her relationship. She only believed that that's her role is to cook. And so that shaped her. That changes who she is, her personality, how she's going to handle relationships. Even in the sense of that mental health of the self-care of taking a step back because you're overwhelmed, today may not be the day to cook. However, she was raised that that's what she's supposed to do. So even though she could feel overwhelmed and need the break, I'm supposed to, as a woman, I'm supposed to do this. I see my mom do it, and I want to match that, right? And because that's usually, the underlining is I want to be able to be that good, that great. I want to be able to reach that goal.
Mhm.
So
And
I definitely believe that it does shape us.
yeah, that's so true, right? So you're saying, hey, it was something I saw. I know that this is what was done. And so the expectation is for me to do it, right? Because I am
Mhm.
also a girl. And so my mom is a girl. And so that gender role, right? But then there's that piece of, I saw my mom do all of the things and I don't want to do that, right? So that
That's so
also
cool.
is a
Yeah.
shaped experience because it's like I saw what happened to her.
Hmm.
I saw how that broke her, or I saw how she was so tired, right? And maybe it didn't break her, right? But
She
she
was
was
overwhelmed,
she was
stressed.
overwhelmed, so tired. And so now someone is like, from that experience growing up, I know that I don't want that for myself. And
Right.
so I now I whether I can afford to hire help, right? Or whether I choose to say no and know when the boundaries need to be in place.
Hmm.
But I definitely know that from that experience, whether it's I want it or don't, it's still shaping me.
Right. Correct.
Hmm.
Yep. And it is influencing. It changed your mindset on how you may have seen it. Because, like you said, if it wasn't as bad as my mom always did it, and I seen the overwhelmness, maybe she might 50-50, right? Maybe I might would have dibbled, but because of that shaped experience, because of how she felt about it at that time, she grew up, I don't want it no more. So definitely, I think that that's so a big thing. And like even like you mentioned, when people say, if I wish I would have not done that, or I shouldn't have done that, I should have known better, things like that,
Hmm.
those comments. But the thing about it is when we take a step back, those situations, that is what shaped us for us to say now that we know. A lot of times we don't know things before we get into it. We get into situations and we learn the proper way to handle the situation, or we experience the heartbreak or whatever the thing is, right? But we learn from it. And then now, of course, looking back at it, we can always say, I wouldn't have done this that way. But it took me to do that for me to learn that I wouldn't have done it this way, right? Because who would have known unless I would have tried? And so that's where it's a lot of things of giving yourself that grace. You didn't know what you didn't know until you learned that lesson.
Yeah.
And
So
that
what
lesson
I'm hearing you say is hindsight, right? Like
Mhm.
when you look back on things, you would have done things differently. I always think about it in this way too. Like, so where did, belief systems, right? Your
Mhm.
mindset, what you believe, right? Where did that originate from? Where did that belief come from, right? Is it yours or did you take it on from someone else? Were you told this is the way something needs to be? Sometimes people subconsciously make decisions just off of them experiencing how their parents made decisions, right? Or how
Mhm.
their parents may not have made decisions, right? So it still is the experience that shaped you. So going back to giving yourself grace, right? When you're in likely making choices in life, right? No one sets out to be like, I want to make the wrong choices and I want this to backfire on me and I want to have to go through this.
Right.
So you have to be okay with knowing that you would likely want to make the best decision. And so in that circumstances, whatever was going on at that time, what you knew and what you had is why you made the choice you made. So, not
Correct.
to beat yourself up about it, but also when you think about the experiences outside of the home, right? Whether it's under what peers and you see how they operate, social norms. And so you're like, hey, this is accepted in my society, or this is what is expected of me in my culture. So this is why I do the things that I do because the experiences of my culture has shaped me.
Right.
Um, it's factors and layers to our experiences that shape us.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah.
And I think that that's so big when we say, even giving ourselves grace, right? Because we have the parents who influence us, especially as young kids growing up. And then we have our peers, and we start getting those subliminal messages from them. And then we have this world of social media, and now we're starting to see things on TV, on the internet, and we're like, wow, that is what I want to do. That's how I want to be. And we start to kind of change who we are, right? In the sense of it's shaping us. It's shaping us because we're seeing this experience and we want it, right? It may be something as like the times of the influencer, they see the big life of the influencer traveling all around and doing that, and it shaped them to be like, wow, maybe I should post more because maybe I can do that. That thing influence, it shaped the personality when it could be a person who never liked social media, right? So it's just even in a sense of little things, but everything shapes us. Everything changes us. It may be something that a third grade teacher said, you're so sweet. One day you're going to be a great teacher. And now you believe inside, I should be a teacher because that third grade, teacher spoke it into me, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. We're
Right.
saying, in a sense, those shaped behaviors that have shaped you, do you want them? Do
Mhm.
you like those experiences? Is there something wrong with it that you feel like, wow, why do I feel this way? And I don't want to. I want to feel differently. That's where we got to try to tackle is when those shaped experiences is not working with the life we want to live.
Yeah. So identifying where you are and who you are based on the experiences that have shaped you,
Mhm.
right? That's what I think I'm hearing you say. Like, listen, you could have taken on what someone told you you were going to be, or how you should be because of going back to just the culture norms, and whether it was a teacher and they're like, hey, you just behave so well and just continue to be this way, right? And so you're like, I always got to be good, because in your mind you're thinking like, okay, this is. And then if you do something that is not what you would think is pleasing to someone else, now you're starting to feel guilty, shame, anxiety, because would this be acceptable based on what so and so said, or my teacher said, or how my family views me? So often people can carry the guilt and shame in, okay, so if I don't show up this way, if I'm not doing what it is that I think that everybody else expects of me, because this is the expectation based on my culture, based on my family environment, what I was raised to do or how I was raised to be. And, so then you're like, but I don't get to be me. I don't get to really be my authentic self if I keep on showing up with the mask or the representation of what everybody else is expecting of me.
Hmm. Right, right. And it's kind of one of the things to take a step back and is it my belief or is it the belief of someone else? And
Mhm.
that's a big question to ask, right?
Mhm.
Is, let's just say, is, getting this career, is it something that you wanted or is it the expectation of your family pushing, right? Is it, I want to get married or is it I'm a woman, I'm supposed to get married for a man to take care of me, right? Like there's so many other layers to it. And so it's like even in a sense of trying to understand someone, that makes it complicated because and why people even argue is because they have the different perspectives from the different beliefs. And
Mhm.
so when we start to build those connections, it is about learning why do you view the things you view that way, and it's okay to ask that question like why do you see that way. I thought this way, because
Right.
we are not going to think the same, and if we did,
Exactly.
come on now.
Yeah.
So I think that that's important to just challenge yourself. Is this my belief? Is it someone else's belief that they put inside me? Do I like it? Do I want this or do I want to change? And that's going to be the deep questions of that self-reflecting, right?
Yeah. That's so important for sure. Especially, you're going to always be evolving, right? So, when I think about even the experiences shaping you, you can be in a period in your life where you're like, okay, so of course, I had these experiences, they have shaped me. Now I no longer want to be this person, right? And so
Mhm.
that's what I heard you saying. Okay, so you got to ask yourself, is this who I really want to be? Am I really a representation of me, or am I a representation of who others thought I should be? And
Right.
so in deciding that, right, you get to also change. You get to transition. You get to transform, right? And so you must know for yourself, hey, yes, a lot of my experiences have shaped me into who I am. I get to take them and change them to what it is that I really want to be for me.
Right.
The experiences still exist. The
Mhm.
experience isn't going anywhere.
Mhm.
Your response and reaction to the experience is what is going to make you the person that you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that's a big point. It's the person you want to be. And I think that that's the huge takeaway, right? We just want to make sure you become the person that you want to be. We always hear a lot of times, especially with family members, they do it a lot. And they'll, moms and daughters, I'm living through you, or things of that nature. But you have to take this step back because you only get to live once. And
Right.
so in the sense of, being fulfilled, being happy, are you doing that by being, like you said, your authentic self? Are
Mhm.
you able to be your authentic self? Are you able to express, even the distaste of I don't like, or is that a fear? Because now we're talking more, right? We're talking about even deeper issues because where did that come from? Where did the fear that you're not allowed to speak up on what you like and don't like come from? Because that's something else that we need to talk about in previous experience, right?
Right.
So it's just so much to it that can come from it, but developing in a sense of who you want to be and speaking out about that, that's going to be like the biggest first step, right? Of walking your authentic path.
Yeah. And so I'm hearing you say, okay, so if you operating in fear, whether you told yourself it would be disrespectful to speak up or to have a voice, whether you are thinking that if I say this or say that, then I'm going to be perceived as being this or that. Um,
Mm,
you don't get to live in your authenticity, right? And I was gonna mess that up. And so, with that being said, because I'm so big on everybody being authentically you, you already know that, right?
Mhm.
But it liberates you because to wear a mask, could you imagine? And when you said you only get one life, I always tell my clients often, like, listen, if you allow someone else to have your life, they get two and you don't get one. And
Mhm.
so, how is that fair? You
Yeah.
giving somebody your life,
Right.
they get to operate your life and theirs. I
And
would
you're
think
on.
it's enough just operating your own.
Right.
Um, but then you don't get one.
Mhm. Yeah. And like you said, that's so important. And it's almost one of them things too that no one, and I really truly mean this, unless they're a child, should ever ask you to put them before you, right? You should be always put yourself first in a sense of caring for, what I want, how I want to act, how I want to carry myself, what type of career, if I want to be married, if I want to bear children, you should have that final, that should be your first is you.
Yeah.
You should have that final say of how you want to go. And anyone who will say, hey, it's more important to do what I say versus what you feel as an adult, how could they have your best interest? Because your best interest is I want you to really find that happiness no matter what it looks like.
Yeah. So I'm hearing you say, listen, someone can give you advice, right? And they could definitely come from a place of wisdom just from their own experiences, right? But that's just it, it's their experience. You
Right.
still get to decide.
Mhm.
And so you can thank somebody for their advice. You can take what you need and leave the rest where it is.
Mhm.
Um, and not needing to explain, but just really like I get to, for myself, I want to experience and make choices that I know was mine. And so then I get to live out this life fully as my authentic self,
Mhm.
which is liberating. And so when I look at it in any what period in life, I get to say I chose to do what I wanted to do and I'm
Right.
not living with regret.
Correct. Can you imagine someone saying you should do it my way, not your own? Like, what? Like,
Yeah,
oh, like, I mean, I understand if you, even if you think this is the best route and I take it, but it may have been the best route for you because of who
right.
you are and your shaped experiences. That doesn't
Hmm.
make it the best route for me, no matter how we can, look at it, right? We could
Yeah,
live the two same parallel lives, but at the end of the day, I mean, even you and I, right? You're still an LPC, I'm still a LMSW. That is going to be a different lane in a
right.
sense of how things are going to be viewed. So it's not going to be a comment of this is the best, the only way that you could possibly. No, we know that. We know there's multiple routes that people can take to still reach the same goal. And so,
Exactly.
saying, hey, I understand you want to do it this way, but you should do it my way, and my way is the only way.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not the only way. Your way could possibly work. So it's like instead of just taking away from them, encourage, right? How do we encourage to see, support them to finding out if their way work? Be there to help people when they don't, make it, but at least they try. And that's conquering that fear of putting themselves out there and even trying. But to be able to do that, people have to welcome them and be okay with, who they are.
Definitely. So I'm hearing you say, listen, everybody has their own experiences. And even if you had the same experience, it still would have likely shaped you differently. And your
Mhm.
path is yours to be walked and have the journey is not to be given to anyone else. And so just really accepting that I have experiences that have shaped me, that has allowed me to make choices and decisions. And so I just know for me that I get to continue to live experience, and make new choices and decisions and give myself grace. And things may not be perfect because that's an illusion, right? But we make the best choices with the circumstances that we know, with the, knowledge that we have, and
Yeah.
we accept that.
And that's what it is. And give ourselves grace. And when sometimes, the best choice that we thought at that time was the best choice, it ended up not being the best choice. Sometimes that can happen.
That can
It's
happen.
sad.
That is the reality of it, right? So
Mhm.
that's the thing. But I think that when you are making decisions, like I said, likely you're taking all of the information that you have in that moment and you're like, listen, this is what I know. And so, based on this knowledge, I'm going to make the sound decision, the best decision that I think would be for me or my family or whatever that may be. Sometimes people do make decisions off of, remember, because we said experiences shape you. Sometimes
Mhm.
people do think, oh, my mom did it this way, my father did it this way. I had called and asked and got advice, and it's nothing wrong with getting advice, right? So I'm not shooting down advice. I
Mhm.
think it really is where you should get sound advice. Um, but you ultimately still have the last say. You get to make the choice with the knowledge that you have. And if you make that decision and later on reflect and realize, I wish I had a did this differently, do not beat yourself up. Give yourself the grace in just knowing that it's okay. You came through it and you get to now make another choice because you're going to be making choices daily, right?
Right. And all the time. That's all we do as adults is make choices. So
Yeah,
it's okay to have to go back to the drawing board and, re-choose on your options on how you want to proceed. Like that is totally fine. That's normal, right? Because of course, as society change, right? Even if we want to talk about outside and external influences that come in, when society change, the culture change, we have to change as well, and those shapes us as well, right? Like to a person who didn't know technology, but now in the world of AI, they have no choice but to adjust and kind of get with the times, right? I never use internet. Well, you have no choice. That flip phone ain't working no more. They don't even make them no more, and I don't know. They may, I
what
don't
is
know.
it?
But you have to adjust. And so that have shaped you. Now, right? The internet, the times, the law is starting to shape you and it's changing what you're going to do. So with that, now it's different decisions. So when you go
Right.
back to that drawing board, you can, repick on which is the best option to move forward. But you made a good point. Taking people's suggestions and opinions, that's great. That's great. We want you to go out there and bounce it off people and pull all in. But at the end of the day, just make sure you feel comfortable and say, I'm happy with the step that I took, or I'm happy with how I acted or who I perceive to be.
Right.
You're happy
Definitely.
with yourself.
Yeah. And I'm like, when you said with everything changing, technology, of course, AI, and then too, if people are older, right, it's likely they could be afraid of even knowing or not knowing, right? Like, oh my gosh, I need to learn something new, or if I don't take on this new way of doing things, that within itself is a challenge. Adapting, right? But the fear of that. So that's that. Listen, we could go down a whole slew of why, even when people think about the experiences that shaped them and them being comfortable and staying in the state that they're in versus, hey, I have to evolve. Um, because life is going to make me. It's not an option, right? It's not staying still.
Right. And like you said, we go down a whole rabbit hole because the first thing that I thought about when you said that was, people do grief. And it's like, oh, she's still sad. Oh, they still crying over. They got to move on. You got to get everyone healed differently. Their
Right.
experiences is different. How they felt may be different. Not to say they didn't love the person the same way you love, but love is different, and people love
Right.
people differently, right?
Yeah,
And
relationship
so
dynamics are different. Everybody don't have the same relationship with the same person.
No,
Yeah.
no. And then it's like one of those things that if, let's say a person who lost their mom, for instance, you lost your mom at a young age to you lost your mom at an old age, that's two different, right? And
Right.
so the way that one will grieve to the other one will grieve and the amount of time that it'll take to heal is different.
It
And
is.
so, rushing healing, we can't do that. So it's
Listen.
not yeah, so it's like one of the things that we have to take a step back and we have to give people their space and
Mhm.
give them their grace because their perception of how outside influences or how things shape them, even if it's, grandma and we all like, okay, well, we all knew, well, grandma might have been mom to me. It
Right.
might have been grandma to you, but grandma was mom to me,
Mhm.
right? And that's different. And so I might be healing slower than cousin,
Yeah.
right? And that's okay.
Yeah,
That's what she will
definitely.
heal.
Listen, that's a whole nother, listen, that topic of grief. And I always tell people, do not compare your grief to anyone else's grief and don't allow someone else to put that on you,
Mhm.
because it really is you grieving. You
Yeah.
do not compare grief. It just doesn't even make sense. So I'm glad you did speak on that quickly, but it's like that's a whole topic within itself. Because grief is it has so many layers. OMG.
Yes, and
Mm.
grief shapes us as well.
Yes,
So let's be honest.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So I think
But
this
it's
was a really good topic, for sure.
yeah,
And just people, I want them, if anything, they take away that their experiences shape them and
yes.
giving themselves grace in knowing that. And you can always evolve. You are always changing, as you grow, as life continues. So definitely give yourself grace.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's important to give yourself grace. And I would like to give the biggest for me, the takeaway
Mhm.
is truly do that self-reflection in the sense of, understanding, stay curious with people, right?
Mhm.
Self-reflect on why do I do the things that I do, what have shaped me, and stay curious about others. Don't judge, don't be quick to
Right.
hold them, to the cross. Like just bag up and wonder like what did they went through, what's going
Right.
on with
What
them,
was
what have
their
shaped
experience?
correct.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
a
Why
lot of
do they
times,
think the way that they think? Why do they do what they do?
yes,
Yes, coming from a place of compassion.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And so stay curious about yourself,
Mhm.
others, ask questions, don't judge, don't just jump
Right.
into judgment.
Mm-hmm. Because we all have a belief system that from our mindsets that, hey, this is what I was raised and taught. And so this is what I believe to be true.
Mhm.
And it's not until people start to have different experiences and interact with other people that they open themselves up to being able to see other perspectives.
That's
So
true.
it's so like, OMG, like, listen. So this was definitely a good one.
Yes.
So I would just say, listen, if you are new to our channel, I'm gonna say it again. Please like, share, and subscribe.
All right. Until
Alrighty,
next one.
until next time.